Hey, it's Mr. Mall again. So you survived the first video. Now we're going to get on to the second one, populations, and basically details about how populations grow and shrink. So let's get into this. The first one we got to talk about is density. So density is talking about how many individuals live in a certain area. So if you think about like the density of a solid, like the density of ice versus the density of a piece of steel. The piece of steel is a lot denser, so it's going to sink in the water while an ice cube floats. So it's kind of the same thing. It's density when you're talking about like pieces of matter is how many molecules are shoved into that little area. So we can think about the same thing with people. It's how many people are shoved into an area. So think about New York City. It's extremely dense. There's 27,000 people per mile. 27,000 people per mile. That's insane. Tiago, North Carolina, is the complete opposite. It's not dense. There's about 900 people per mile. It's still kind of a lot to think about, but it's very little compared to New York City. So think about density-dependent factors. Remember, density-dependent factors worry about how dense the population is. So think about, once again, a zombie outbreak. Which city would be easier to contain? Obviously North Dakota, because well, that's a state, but North Dakota would be a lot easier because it's a lot less dense. There's a lot less people there. The disease would spread a lot slower. So that is density where individuals and populations. What we have here is just a little map to show you kind of the density of the states. So we see up here in the Northeast where we are, it's pretty dense. There's about 1,000 people per square mile. New York City, which is about right here, is extremely dense. But we look at Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, we see that it's all pretty dense. And then once you go out to the west here, not very dense because they're mostly farms. So those all take into account how big populations get and things like that. Remember, think back to carrying capacity. So one of the reasons we're really, really dense up in the Northeast is due to back in like the 1900s, that's where everybody came into. When we were a growing nation and people started coming to the Americas, we had specific port cities that they came into. So that leads us into our next thing is migration. So immigration, IM, is when people enter a population. So that's like if people are coming from Italy or France or anything like that, they're entering the population. Immigration starts with an I, and so does the word in. That's how I remember immigration. On the flip side, we have emigration, EM. So emigration starts with an E, so does the word exit. So emigration is how many people are leaving that area. So let's say I have 10 people immigrating every day into the United States. There's 5 people emigrating out of the United States every day. So what would our growth rate be? We have 10 entering, 5 leaving. That would mean our growth rate is positive 5 because we have 10 people coming, 5 people leaving, 10 minus 5, 5. The other factor that comes into play when we start talking about how populations grow is birth and death rates. So I love these two pictures. But birth is an addition, death is a subtraction. So when we have babies, we're adding to the populations. When people die, which is an unfortunate inevitability, it's subtracting from the populations. So combine that with birth and death rates. So I'm actually going to add a slide here. Let's say immigration, we're adding 10 people every day. We're also adding 5 births every day. So those are adding to the population. On the other side, we are seeing that 15 people are leaving every day, which is unfortunate, but we're only seeing 3 people pass away every day. So what you want to do is add these up to see. So our additions are really plus 15, because 10 plus 5, we're seeing a plus 15 every day with addition to the population. On the other side, we're seeing minus 15, minus 3. So we're seeing minus 18 every day. So if we take this, we take 15 minus 18, we see that our growth rate is actually negative 3. So we took the additions minus the subtractions, and we see that our growth rate, which is actually a weird term because this is actually shrinking. In the grand scheme of things, at the end of the day, after we take into account all the birth and death rates, immigration, emigration, we're seeing that our population is losing 3 people per day. These are not real statistics, but this is what you guys want to take into account when you're thinking about birth, death, immigration, emigration. So this picture sums it up pretty well. We have a group of birds. Births, adding to the population. Immigration, adding to the population. Deaths, subtracting from the population. Emigration, subtracting from the population. So this is happening all the time. And this population in the middle is always going up and down, but there are general trends after a while. So the things you really want to take away from this little video is, one, population density. So how many people live in a certain area. Birth rates, how many babies are being born. Death rates, how many people are passing away. Immigration, how many people are leaving. Emigration, how many people are coming in. All these things go into account when we look at populations and how they change size. And what we're going to talk about next is population pyramids. And population pyramids start to show all of these, and we can start to analyze and dissect these population pyramids and start to figure out birth rates, death rates, see if there is a lot of emigration or immigration. So these are the factors that affect population growth. And one of the confusing terms is that population growth can be negative. It does have the word grow in it, but it could be decreasing. The Japanese population is decreasing right now. Their growth rate is negative, so they're losing people every day. Their death rates in emigration are higher than their birth rates in immigration. It's unfortunate, but it's true. So these are all the things that factor in when you're looking at population growth. So pause, rewind, go back. I know I kind of flew through it, but I want to get through these. If you want to pause, rewind, that's the beauty of these videos. Keep going back until you get it, guys.